Thank you, Brian. Nice to see you all this morning. So I'm just going to do a very brief overview of GDS and the work that we've done over the past 5 years that we've been around, and then I will talk in more detail about Government Platform and the work that we're planning to do over the next 5 years or so. So the UK is setting the standard for digital government. I think you all know that. That's why you're here. That's probably part of the reason why you work in the sector that you work in. And the world is following our lead. Particularly from a GDS perspective, we look at what they're doing in the States, what they're doing in Australia. They're really modelling the GDS example of bringing that digital expertise into government, having a really strong centre and driving change across the government sector in the digital space. The New Zealand government website, if you go and look at it, it will hopefully look very familiar to you because they've basically taken gov.uk code and put New Zealand on the top of it and turned it into their website, and that's great. That's exactly what we want people to be doing with our assets. We want to make them open and reusable, whether that's across different sectors of government in the UK or whether that's across the world. That's a win for us. So how did that happen? We're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk briefly about what we've done in GDS and how we did it, and then probably most interesting for you, what we're doing now. And just one more thing, I'll use the term we a lot in this talk. That's really important. We means the whole of government, not just GDS. I might talk a bit more about the things that we've been particularly responsible for because that's the thing that I know the most about. But this is really a collective effort. It's not just something that GDS is going to deliver on its own. So, what have we done? You might recognise some of this. Hopefully you'll recognise quite a lot of it, but probably not all of it. So just quickly kind of run through some of the things. We've got UK, I'm sure you know, single website for government, one domain, really reducing down our digital estate across government, but more importantly making it simpler, clearer and faster for people to access information. Alongside that, we looked at 25 exemplar services across government and all of those transactions. Not all of those were a big success. 20 of them we would claim as big successes. 5 of them we'd say there's still work to do. But actually, in terms of the model that we do of wanting to try things, to take risks, to fail if that's what's going to happen, that for us was a success. We've managed to transform 20 of those services, and we're going to work on the next 5 and the next 5 and the next 5 as we go through this parliament. Gov.uk Verify, identity assurance system for government, currently in beta, and Performance Platform, which is a real-time live access to data about the performance of services and transactions. Really important for us within government to be able to see how our services are doing, but also great that that's open and transparent, so any member of the public can look at that and see what's going on across services. Assisted digital support, really important for us to have this up here. Whenever I speak at events like this, I'm always asked, well, what are you doing about the people that can't access these services? It is absolutely fundamental to what we do, to say both that we recognise that some people will not be able to access our digital services, but also that we need to be helping people to access them. We need to be designing them in a way that makes them more accessible, and we need to be providing that support. One of the things that we do within GDS is that for every government service that goes live, it has to go through a service assessment that we run. Assisted digital is a core part of that. We have failed services that don't meet the assisted digital requirement and meant that they can't go live. And we will keep doing that and presenting that challenge to government and saying you really need to think about building this into the core of your service. Digital skills in government, another really key element of what we've done over the last 5 years. Bringing those kind of skills in right across the piece in government, particularly focused on bringing in senior leaders that can drive change across departments, but also about building up the capability at a working level, at this kind of service manager, delivery level, right across government. Digital marketplace, is one I'm sure many of you are aware of. Really making sure that we can access the supplies that we need to, that we can do that in a much more effective way, that we're not spending all of our time bogged down in procurement. And better, cheaper technology. We've got a picture of maps here, because that's what we happen to have in GDS for our customers. But actually, this is not about saying, let's have some shiny tech. It's about saying, actually, let's have tech that works for the people that need to use it across government. Let's not spend half an hour having to log on to our systems before we can actually do work in the morning. Let's have the tools that we need in order to be able to enable the wider change. And finally, we've saved billions, so 1.7 billion is our audited figure for the past year. We hope that this year that will be bigger. But it's really to kind of demonstrate the kind of difference that we can make actually just by doing the right thing across digital. And the strategy for us is delivery. Let's get on with things, let's build things, let's deliver things, and let's show that this can work across the sector. And people are noticing, which is good. The Prime Minister described us as one of the unsung triumphs of the last Parliament. I find that a little bit ironic given we spend most of our time at GBS celebrating how great we are. But apparently we are unsung despite all of that. A lot of the particular services have had a lot of coverage. Some independent article about the electoral registration that we built for the last election. And a bit of international recognition as well, so the Washington Post talking about the model that's been replicated all over the world. And as Brian has said, and I'm sure someone will ask me about later, we've got an awful lot of coverage recently about our exports, which is really good. So how did we do it? Using open, agile ways of working, basically how people work in the private sector. None of this is rocket science, we haven't invented this ourselves. We've just said, let's look at what's working, what's successful, and let's bring that into government, and let's share that with colleagues. What we're trying to do is change the culture and the skill set in government. So let's really embed these digital ways of working into what everybody does on a day-to-day basis. We don't want this to be a sort of shiny thing in the corner that does a bit of work in government. We want this to be really embedded into the culture across the whole of government in terms of how we work and how we run services. And there are teams all over the UK working like this now. WP in Newcastle, DBLA in Swansea, MOJ in Manchester, for example. We're building really skilled teams all across the country that can build and deliver services in this way. And supported by businesses all over the country. So this is a map of suppliers in the digital marketplace. If we'd looked at this map 4 or 5 years ago, there would have been a very small cluster around London and Reading and that core area, and pretty much nothing across the rest of the country. It's a real sign of success for us that actually we've been able to open up that market and really diversify. It's great for us, it means it gives us a much broader range of suppliers, but we think it's great for the market as well, it gives people that access to what we do. And a strong digital centre. It's really important that we have that call, setting standards, driving change across government, providing help and guidance where we can, particularly on the exemplar programmes that we did, providing the support to departments that they need, plugging skills gap where they may have them, making sure that we're kind of keeping ourselves honest and driving to where we want to get to. And we have digital technology and data leaders across government who help coordinate this. So there is a senior person responsible in every government department for really driving this agenda. And that's been incredibly powerful for us in terms of kind of building those networks and building leadership across government and making sure that we can kind of drive this collectively rather than just being the centre pushing us forward. So working like this has improved lives. I'm going to show you a short video, hopefully for those of you that had an interesting night last night, this might enliven you a bit more about one of our users.
I'm 67 and I've done the lasting power of attorney for my mother. My mum's grasp on modern day living as it was a bit limited, so it was decided then that I would pay all the bills, sort everything out for her. 3 years ago I had a stroke, and you start thinking about your own mortality, and you start thinking about, well, if something had have happened to me, then how would Mum have coped? What would have happened? Anyway, looking on the internet, and I literally stumbled across the government site for the lasting power of attorney. Started to look at it and I thought, this is good, because you can download all the paperwork yourself, you don't need a solicitor, and the instructions that went with each section of the lasting power of attorney were in proper people speak, not in legal jargon, so it was very easy for me to follow it. If I can do it, anybody can do it, you know. It's easy. The written instructions, You just can't go wrong. And I would say now to anybody, don't be frightened, don't worry about going to see a solicitor. Do it yourself. I'm glad I did it, and I'm glad I did it when I did it, and my mum's really pleased. And can I say thank you?
Of course you can.
Yeah, of course you
I
can.
just want to say thank you to everybody involved in doing the website, because it's given me peace of mind, and I'm sure it gives a lot of people peace of mind. And my friend now is doing that, and you've made it so simple and so easy for anybody to do. And I just hope that anybody who sees this film, please do it, and you'll feel so relieved afterwards. You know, it's great to know that the people that you care for, everything's looked after for them. Thank you.
So that was Anne. It's quite hard to follow Anne, the rest of my talk. But it's really important for us to think about Anne in the work that we do, to think about our users, and actually remember that this stuff makes a huge difference to people's lives. And that's what we focus on within GDS, is putting the user first. Everything else that we've talked about is just a way that we do that. But it's really important that we remember people like Anne. So what are we doing now? The last Parliament was about transforming individual services, building capability in government, setting up this approach within what we do in government. Now that we've got those skilled and empowered teams working across the government, we've got that real focus on digital. What we want to do is look at how can we drive this forward, how can we provide cross-government support, and build out more widely. So particularly looking at local government, looking at health, how do we build out this approach? And the best way that we think we can do that is government as a platform, which is what we'll talk about now. So building core, shared, common components and tools that are common across government, on which we currently duplicate hundreds, if not thousands of times across our services. We want to make sure that we're setting the principles and standards that ensure services become interoperable. But really for us it's about saying, let's get rid of the complexity and duplication that we have in the system. Let's think about doing this in a new way. We could repeat the work that we did on the exemplar programs again if we wanted to. But if we did that, we'd be chipping away at what we need to do to transform services across government. Departments can lead on that digital transformation of their services, but what they really need is a quicker and easier way for them to do that. And government as a platform is our response to that. I'll talk about payments, which is one of the platforms that we're currently building, to give you kind of a good example of how that might work. So today, every service within government develops or procures its own way of taking payments. There's examples of services here, but it's not just that there's a different way of doing payments across every department, there's a different way of taking payments for every single service across government. They're all individually developed, individually procured, it takes a very long time. If they then want to change those approaches, it's extremely complicated and often expensive. This is incredibly inefficient, and it's a real barrier to quick development of services and to iterating our services. So what we want to do is put a payments platform in place, making a simple way that's reusable, taking payments available for all government services, including local government. It'll be one platform, we do that procurement one time, we build that one time, and then it can be reused multiple times across services across government. We've already started building some of these platforms. Gov.uk is a publishing platform, Verify is an identity platform, currently in public beta. Performance platform, as we've talked about, and the digital marketplace, as we've talked about. We're going to be building more, things like payments in that we've just shown you, hosting in particular. Currently, every time anybody wants to set up a new service, they have to go out themselves and work out how that's going to be hosted, how all of that support infrastructure is going to be put in place, rather than having a simple and easy way to do that. Status tracking and notifications are one in particular that we're going to be building first. We don't currently have across government any simple way of building into a service, kind of where's my thing, I sent you my application, did you receive it, are you processing it, am I going to get it back? Currently what we do is we take calls or we take posts on those things. And the vast majority of the kind of calls that come into us are failures in the system of not being able to find out where your thing is or get those notifications. It's a really simple fix that we can build, that we can plug into those services and address those concerns. We've also spun up common technology services. So this is about transforming the tools that civil servants use, giving us better technology that works, but saying actually we don't need to have 50 different ways of doing Wi-Fi across government or 50 different ways of securing technology. Actually, let's look at how we do that in a more collective, streamlined way, and means that we can work together across government. So we should be able to, we should be able to work together across departments, we should be able to work in different government buildings. We shouldn't need to have to be siloed in your department in the same way that we don't think services should be siloed across departments. So we will be building this out over the next few months. And we're learning how to operationalise the data that we have so it meets government's needs. That work is just starting, and we'll be talking about it more over the next few months as we build that out. But that's going to be really core to making sure that we can build services that build on that data in an effective way. And it will mean GBS can support other organisations as they improve their services. So rather than GBS spending all of its time going out and looking at individual services and transforming them, what we'll do is provide those core tools and enable departments to use those to build those out much more quickly and much more cheaply, more importantly. So we'll build some of those platforms. We will build those together with departments. So the payments in platform that we're building currently, we're building collectively with departments to make sure it meets their requirements. And we're currently looking at can we build local government into that from the start to make sure we're meeting local government requirements as we take that forward. We will help to set those standards, but again, all of this work will be done collectively across government so that we make sure it works for everybody. It's all about transforming people's experience of government. So we should be able to transform the services we have, but also mean that we can build new services quickly and easily. It shouldn't be complicated to build these services. It shouldn't take us 2 years to implement a policy objective. We should be able to quickly build services using these platforms, test them, change them if they're not working, change them if the policy changes and we need to throw them away if we don't think they're meeting what we need and build them again. We want to build into that world where we can act much more quickly and meet those objectives. And doing it right will mean we can do things much better, we can book appointments much more simply, we can find out where our applications have got to, we can apply for a licence, say, or for funding, or all of the things that you do to transact with government more conveniently. And very importantly, given where we are at the moment in terms of spending review, something that I never go a day without talking about, it will make government much more efficient. Much more efficient in terms of how much we have to spend to build and operate services, but also much more efficient in terms of how quickly we can spin these things up, how much less friction needs to be in the system, and how much better we can be at getting stuff done. And most importantly, it will improve people's lives. Thank you. That's it from me.
So we've got some time for one or two questions for Felicity. Anybody has any? Any volunteers? I'm going here to Martin there with questions. Somebody's got the microphone.
Thank you, Felicity. It's Martin Ferguson, I'm Policy Director of Socitm. Some great achievements, and I welcome the recognition towards the end of your talk, the recognition of local. I just wish I could say I recognise the involvement of local in some of the things you're talking about. And I think we've got a lot of work to do there, and I think we've got work to do in recognising the importance of place and the fact that people live in places where services come together involving a multitude of different organisations, central, local, private, public, voluntary sector, and particularly in areas like health and social care, which are very complex. So I just welcome your thoughts about how we as local engage in the sorts of things you're talking about in terms of standards and common capabilities.
I mean, absolutely, I agree with you that I think local government and health as well are areas where we haven't been engaged over the last 5 years, in some ways deliberately. the remit of GDS has always been very much to focus on central government. That in itself has been quite a big challenge, has to be said. It's kept us busy for the last 5 years. So I don't think we haven't done much engagement any more broadly than that, really. I think there is recognition now across all the sectors that in the future we need to be doing that, and we all need to be working together and looking at kind of what we can do to broaden that out. I think the government as a platform approach is a really good opportunity to do that. There is no reason why the arguments that we have for why we think government platform is the right approach shouldn't work just as much in the local government sector or in health as they do within central government. And actually from a user perspective, if I as a user get used to seeing my central government services working in this way, I will also expect my local government services to work in this way, because probably I don't know whether they're local or central, and I don't really care. I just want to do whatever the transaction is that I want to do, and I want that to work in the most effective way. And I think that we all need to work collectively to think about how do we break down some of those barriers and some of those silos across what you do. And I think there is huge potential in what we can do here. So if I think about, I don't know, buying a car, say, if I buy a new car currently, I will have to go to DVLA to register it. I then have to go to my local authority probably to buy a parking permit. I then need to go and buy insurance for my car. Those systems are all probably completely separate and siloed. We should be able to get to a world where we can join up those processes much more effectively. You should be able to do that in a seamless way. You should be able to apply for a permit, as you do your registration of your car, for example. Or we need to think about how we can join that up and break down those barriers. There's a lot we need to do there in terms of data in particular, in terms of our organisational boundaries, in terms of service delivery, but I think there is an opportunity as we build out this kind of platforms world to think about how we can do that, how we can work together to make that journey more effective. We in GES have done some work over the summer with LA in particular and TCLG to start talking about actually how can we open up more of the work that we're doing to the local government sector. We need to do more of that. And as I'll probably say 100 times, it slightly depends on what the outcome of the SR is in terms of where everyone's positioned in terms of what they can do. But I think we need to start having that dialogue. And I'd be really interested to hear what people think of things that we can do to help start to facilitate that work.
Questions down in the middle around there?
Mark Say, UK Authority. I wonder if you can tell us a bit more about, you spoke about operationalising data. I wonder if you could tell us a bit more about that in terms of putting a bit more definition on it and what your priorities will be.
So it's not something that we've worked up in a lot of detail at the moment, to be honest, so I don't have a lot of detail that I can talk about, although hopefully we will over the next few months. One of the things that we've just done is move a bunch of the work that's being done around data in Cabinet Office into GES with Paul Motley, who's our Chief Data Officer, and bring that together much more closely than it has been in the past, potentially. And that, I think, gives us lots of opportunities to think about how do we use data in a more effective way and build it into government as a platform. One of the things that government as a platform really relies on is thinking about data and registers, and particularly where are our kind of canonical sources of data that we can use to build services on, and how do we draw on and share that data in a way that is kind of safe and secure, but allows us to build services that are flexible and work well. And we're looking at what that model is. But registers are the focus for us at the moment, which is how do we make sure that we have, say, a canonical source of data for what do we define as land, what do we define as a business, what do we define as a car, for example. They sound like really simple things. In actual fact, in government, we don't have anywhere an agreed list of what are businesses and what should be on that list. We have probably about 5 different lists of things that we think are businesses by different definitions. So in terms of kind of building services in this way, we need to think about what does that data landscape look like, how do services access that data, and how do we manage that process. So that's really where our focus is going to be over the next 3 months, is to think about how do we build that out a bit more, how do we look at what the challenges are there, and then how do we start to think about doing that in a more open way. That doesn't give you a lot of detail, I know, but that's, to be honest, the details isn't there yet, really, in terms of how we think that through.
Okay, some more questions? Sarah, just on the left there.
Hi there, Paul Brewer from Adrian Worthy. I was just wondering around this sort of build or buy and the supplier market. And I know Eddie Copeland's going to probably talk about this a bit, but do you think that we as a whole community are saying enough about the importance of open standards? Because I think however we divide this in terms of build and buy, the whole ecosystem needs to operate with open standards, and clearly that goes into data standards. But just as a way for us as local government to start to get into the right place with our systems, you know, to be able to be demanding open standards. Do you think that is talked about enough?
I mean, I think we talk about it a lot. I think it can probably never be talked about too much in terms of kind of building that into the core of what we all do. I think probably one of the dangers is that we talk about it a lot, but at a very kind of superficial level, and actually we probably don't do enough of getting into the kind of the meat of what does that actually mean. How do you do that? How do you build that into what you're doing? And how do you take advantage of that once you've done that? So I think we probably do need to do more of that. I think we see one of the core roles of GDS being around setting those standards and particularly making sure that things are interoperable and that they're open in the future. You know, we are fairly agnostic about what is built, what is brought in. Our approach is you find the best solution to what you need to do. If that already exists, then let's not recreate it. That's not what we're here for. But we need to make sure that everything is open and interoperable, that we're not setting ourselves up in 5 years' time to be locked into whatever it is that we're building. And that applies just as much to things that we might be building within government now. We need to make sure that we're not going to be locking ourselves into something that we've built that perhaps isn't suitable in 5 years' time. So we really need to keep that front and centre of everything that we do.
And down the front here. This is working out to be a very good opportunity for keeping fit if you're the person who has the microphone. Right down the front.
Good morning, Adrian Newpath from Shropshire Council. You talked a lot about data and platforms. You didn't mention the word service redesign, which, you know, as a citizen and as a member of the council, one gets frustrated at the poor processes. And I just wondered how much of that, particularly given the benefits that you're claiming that you produce, perhaps something about service redesign would be helpful?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, service redesign is incredibly important. It's kind of a core part of what we've been trying to drive as GDS over the past 5 years. And particularly the work that we did on the exemplar programmes that I talked about briefly. A lot of that work for us was helping departments to look at their services and think about how you redesign those and make those work for the user. I think on our carers allowance programme we took out something like 1,000 pages from the application that just weren't necessary, that just made it simpler and easier, for example, for people to apply for that. That's a really basic example, but there's a huge amount of work that we do, and we have really good teams within GDS that help to drive that support departments. We've had some great success actually at bringing heads of design into departments, which is really important in terms of sending a message to departments. Actually, you need to be thinking from the outset about how you design your services, that's the fundamental to how you do that process and building that in. And I think that message is getting across, and that is starting to be built in. With government as a platform, I guess what we're saying is we, as GDS, are not going to be focusing our resources on each individual service which needs to be redesigned. We're going to be focusing on what are the tools and components that we can provide to departments to enable them to more easily do that redesign work. So that will still be happening across government. It's a big priority of departments to do that. But what we think we can do more efficiently is this work to make that easier. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to be doing anything on redesigning services, we absolutely will. It's really fundamental to making services work for users. Much as we've had some success on services, there are huge amounts of services that still just don't work for users, and certainly don't work in the way that they should. And that's true across the sector. And we need to be thinking about how we drive that change.
Right next to you, there you go, nice easy.
You touched on one of the things I think is the foundation of services and departments working together, which is how do you reference a business and how do you reference a person. Are you going to sort that problem out for us? is that what you're suggesting?
We're going to try and help. That's probably as much as I can commit at the moment. I mean, we absolutely recognise that challenge and we want to address that. We can't do that on our own. We have to do that with departments, but I think departments also recognise that challenge. It's a challenge that limits what they can do on a daily basis, and that frustrates them. One of the challenges always in doing this work across government is it's not a greenfield site. It's not, we talk a lot about this is how they do it in Google, this is how they do it in Amazon, this is how they do it wherever else. Most of the time, those businesses are building something new, they're creating a new thing, and they're building infrastructure. We are never really operating in a greenfield environment. We're also always having to build on what is the existing service that we have, how do we transform that, and that particularly applies to data. So one of the challenges we repeatedly have is we have a very good vision for where we want services to be, but you have a legacy system and legacy data behind that, which makes that a lot more challenging than it might otherwise be. Departments are really aware of that and want to tackle that, but it's not going to be simple to get from where we are to where we want to be, but we absolutely want to help to drive that, particularly to kind of set standards around what that should look like, but also to help departments to unpick that and unbubble that and come up with a much simpler way of doing that.
But it's not something that we can deal with at a local government level. It has to come centrally.
Absolutely. And I think part of that work, I hope will enable us to open up some of that data more effectively, so that there are things that in local government you currently can't do. You can't access that data in a way that you want to. So we should be able to get to a world where we have the right kind of standards and protections around that, which enable us actually to do that in a much easier way.
Okay, some more questions? Time for one or two more. Behind you, back down the middle there.
Chris Rye there, Lancaster City Council. You mentioned the payments platform as an example. You'd have one procurement. I have a concern about that in that how do you drive competition with that? I would prefer to see one standard and then we all do our procurement around that standard.
Yes, so when I said one procurement, what I didn't mean was we'll just do one procurement and that's it forever for the payments platform. What I meant was we'll do that in one place for the payments platform so that we don't have to be doing it 50 different times across services. What we would absolutely expect within that platform is that you have a diversity of market within that platform. So if I'm service X and I plug the payments platform into my service, I can come and look at that payments platform and I can say, actually, I want my customers to be able to use that provider, and that provider, but not that one. Or I want my customers to be able to pay by direct debit for this service, but maybe for this service I don't. So I won't switch on the direct debit bit for this service, but I will switch on for that service. So it should be about having a place where very easily the service owner can come and say, I want to pick and choose from this platform which bits I want. But within that platform, we would absolutely expect a very diverse range of suppliers to be in that platform. It's not about saying we'll do one procurement and pick one supplier for the whole government and that's it. That's absolutely not where we want it to be. This should be an opportunity actually to give us that diversity within the market, and from our perspective, to build in that competition which drives better prices for us as well, we would hope. And it also means that we can be much more effective about responding to innovation. So particularly if you look at payments, there's huge amounts of innovation at the moment in the payments industry. We should be able to, for example, bring something like Apple Pay or Square or Stripe or whoever the new providers are that are coming onto the market. Currently, for something like Apple Pay, every single service across government would have to go out and look at Apple Pay and see how they could build that into their service. We shouldn't have to do that. We should be able to do that one time and make that much more simpler. So that's what I mean by one procurement, which is what sloppy language, but hopefully that's reassuring.
Okay, any more questions? Right down in the front corner here.
Hello. Sorry, I think Joe works. I'm Neil Moore for Government Computing. It was just going back to, you mentioned about building the payments platform and with local government in from the beginning as part of that. And I was wondering if that's sort of the first time that approach has been taken with one of the platforms, developers doing the platform, and also where that work is at present in terms of opening that up and giving local the opportunity to be involved.
Yeah. So as far as I know, that's the first time that we've done that. Thinking through our platforms, thinking as far as I know, it is. Particularly in that way and the kind of approach that we're doing it. Where we are with the payments platform is that it has just gone into beta. So we've built an alpha over the summer, which was a fairly small project, and we're now taking it into beta. And that beta process is to have early adopters across a variety of services across government departments who are building that with us, who we hope to take live transactions from fairly soon. I don't really have any committed dates, but I think in the new year we would hope that we can start to do that. We have been talking to a number of local authorities, a combination of local authorities who contacted us off their own bat and said actually we're really interested in this, and some that we've come through the work we've been doing in Alger over the summer. And what we want to do is build those into a similar early adopter model so that we're looking at the requirements for the government from the payments platform. Let's make sure we design for that from the outset rather than coming to it in a year's time and saying actually we've structurally built some things into this platform that just don't work for the sector. And I think that's really important for us in GDS because we're not local government experts. Our focus has been very much on central government and our expertise is in that space, and we're very aware that actually we need to draw on that local government expertise and build that in if we're going to do that in an effective way. So that's a new way of doing that we're going to kind of build out over the next few months. And I guess I would say hopefully if that works, then we can replicate that across other platforms, certainly where I would want to be. It helps my background as in local government, so I'm always prodding and saying, are we doing this? What's happened to local government? So that's helpful.
Okay, time for one more question, and of course it's right at the very back for you. We have a GPS tracker on that phone. It would be interesting to watch the map.
Thank you. Hi, Felicity. I'm from Warwickshire County Council. We've actually been working with you on Verify, so you have done a little bit with other government. But a couple of questions for you. One is on the Verify, we're working on the alpha and improving the beta as well. But in order for that to progress, are you going to deal with the financial business case? Because at the moment, you still have no approach for who's going to pay for the citizens when they go and get their verification from external suppliers. That's one question. Is that holding up us? Why would we do it first and pay for it on behalf of everybody else in our area? That's the first one. Second one is also with regard to that, we're working on that on attribute exchange, and we really need you to help open up some of the data from the central departments. As you say, we can really improve the processes for people like the citizen you had there, if we can get the information out of places like DWP. So help for that. The final thing is Verify, as you say, doing it a single platform. All the talk in the press last week was about the health going off and taking a slightly different approach. What are you going to do to stop that? Because that just seems crazy. We're going to have one citizen identity for government services and maybe even local government, and yet they're talking about they can't use that for health.
So a bunch of things about Verify there. I mean, on the financial side, totally recognise the frustration and the difficulty there. Until we get to the end of the SR process, at the end of November, we're not going to have any final clarity on what that model is going to look like. We have put our proposals into the Treasury, and we will keep driving for the approach that we think is going to work, but we'll have to wait and see what comes out of that process. But I think at least at the end of that process, one way or the other, we will have clarity for GDS and across departments for what that model is and what that's going to look like. And then hopefully we can kind of start talking about finance and actually carry on with delivery, which is what we would rather be doing. now I can't remember what I should have written them down, what the other elements were. Opening up data, absolutely agree, and it goes back to what I was saying earlier. We need to try and facilitate making that process much easier, so that we can make sure that we can, from our perspective, we want Verify to be workable across the whole of the system. So we have a vested interest in making that work, but we also recognise you have a vested interest in getting access to that data. So that's definitely something that we want to push and want to keep doing. And we've learned a lot, I would say, from the Verify process about how that works and how the data system works, which will feed into the broader picture for us, but that's actually something we're going to be continuing to try and drive forward. What's the last one? Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess what we don't want to do is enforce Verify if it's not the right approach for a particular service. We are just starting to do work with health around what are their requirements and what, does Verify meet those, does it not? I think that is less far advanced than it is, for example, in relation to local government. I'm not close to the detail of that, but I think certainly if we can make it work for health, then we would prefer to do that, because I think from a user perspective, it makes more sense, as you say, to have one way of verifying minutes and one way of doing that. Equally with Verify, I think in the future, it should be something that's available in the private sector as well. The way that the model for Verify works means it's very open and useful, and that's certainly where we would want to drive it towards. But I think we need to do more work with health really to look at, does that work for them and how their processes are going to develop.
Okay, thanks, Felicity. That's all we've got time for questions today. Thank you for all of your questions. Clearly a topic that there is a lot of interest in, judging by the number of questions that we've been having. So thanks for all your questions. But most importantly, thank you to Felicity Singleton for coming along and telling us a little bit about the work that's going on the government platform. If you can show your appreciation for Felicity.